know what the biggest game of the season is going to be. And this is a rarity, a game in week number 1 where we do end up seeing college football implications on the lines in terms of the playoff. 14 playoff last year of that era coming up. We got number 5 LSU taking on the number 8 Florida State Seminoles. Should be a big time game on the docket. And this was truly an exciting game that we had the chance to watch last season. This was, of course, a game in which we saw it go literally to the very last play. LSU actually missed an extra point in order for Florida State to win that game. It was a big time win, and it shows that Mike Norvell maybe actually knows what he's doing, dare I say it, at Florida State. This is certainly going to be the best team that he's had since he's been on that Florida State campus as the head coach. But now here we are. This game certainly one of the more exciting games of the week, and this is a game that could go either way. You see the spread that's being reported by Vegas right now, and then you see our power rating model here on any given Saturday. And for the first time, I think, since we started this podcast, right on the nose, the power rating and Vegas do agree. So it's at -2.5 in favor of LSU. Now, what does that mean? This means this game really could go either way. So how I want to do it for this game, as well as jumping into the other games moving forward into this pod, kind of want to talk about the keys of the game first and foremost. How does LSU win? How does Florida State win? And then maybe give my prediction in terms of what I think could happen in this game, right? So we'll go right into it. We will jump right into the keys of the game. And for multiple keys happening here, right? So first and foremost, running the football is extremely important for both teams. So both teams, the key to winning this game is being able to run effectively. And LSU, for the most part, was effective in running the football. They ended up going 10-1 last year, and a big reason why they did that was because they went over 140 yards on the ground in those games. So when they do accomplish that, which they did end up doing most of the time, they end up winning the game. They won 10-1. Now, in their other 3 games, and that does include the SEC Championship against Georgia last season, they went 0-3. And this is a pattern for Brian Kelly's teams, even if you want to take it back to when he was at Notre Dame. For example, in 2021, Notre Dame teams went 9-0 when running for 120 yards for more, 2-2 when they didn't. COVID year, Irish went undefeated when they ran for 140 yards on the ground like they did in 2022. That led them into the college football playoff. However, they went 1-2 when they didn't. That does include an ACC championship loss. Remember, for that 1 year, for that COVID year, Notre Dame was in the ACC conference. And of course, they also lost in the college football playoff. And then going to 2019, 11-0 when running the ball for 105 yards or more, 0-2 when they didn't. So I think you guys get the general idea, right? If LSU can run the ball, they're going to put themselves in a very good position to win this game. And Florida State is similar in that regard. Florida State really likes to run the ball themselves, and they were pretty effective in doing that too. So Florida State last season, they averaged 5.5 yards a game, and vice versa on the defensive end. They weren't too shabby at stopping the run either. They only allowed 4 yards a carry. So I'm really curious to see who's going to be able to move people off the ball a little bit more effectively in terms of that run game. I think whoever does end up getting the run game going first, not saying that they would win outright, but I do think that it is certainly possible that we could absolutely see them have an advantage in terms of winning this game. Now, of course, running the football, not the only thing that's important. I think we all know that running the football matters. I think we're all on the same page there. So, what are the other keys that we should be watching for when we come into this game? Second thing that I want to watch out for, special teams. I think special teams in a game where it could really go either way. Usually special teams doesn't have a big impact on the game, but I think special teams will certainly be amplified in this particular game. I think this is going to be one of the closer games that we do end up seeing. And that being considered, I do think that for LSU, they had some issues with their special teams last season. Going back, not even worried about the kicker, missing that extra point against Florida State. Also had that block kick against Georgia. That ended up getting returned for a touchdown. That alone is a 10-point swing. You hate to see that. But you just take a look at the punt return average. For their opponents, LSU allowed 11 yards per punt return, while LSU was able to get just 3.5 yards at best. So not getting a lot out of their special teams. Special teams certainly needs to be better for the LSU Tigers going into this year. Florida State's special teams, I think it's fine, but you never know what can happen when you have 18 to 22-year-old kids on the field lined up against each other. So we do know this as well. And then finally, how well does Jayden Daniels end up getting protected in this project? Well, I guess there's another key, but we'll go to the LSU side first. How well does Jayden Daniels get protected in this game? Last year, LSU's offensive line allowed 45 sacks. That is a tremendous amount for, the type of talent that LSU may have on this team. Will Campbell, certainly one of the best players on that team at offensive tackle. He's a true sophomore, by the way. That kid is going to be special. But I have questions about that offensive line, though. How does it hold up, particularly against Florida State's pass rush? Florida State got a pretty good pass rush, I would say. 40 sacks last year. That's more than 3 sacks a game. So how's that pass rush? Do they get home against LSU? Or is Jayden Daniels, who is a mobile quarterback, to be fair, so he's not a statue, so that helps. But if it's one of those games where Jayden Daniels is going to be running for his life, could be a long night for the LSU offense, because what that could happen in order to avoid your quarterback taking more hits, maybe they do become a little bit more one-dimensional, and Florida State, they're not too shabby at stopping the run as well. However, let's say that defensive line does not get home Sunday night against LSU's offensive front. So what happens then? One thing that I'm very cautious about is Florida State's ability to deal with an accurate quarterback. Now, over the course, and going back to 2016 as well, Florida State's defense has improved tremendously. They are at one point ranked 117th in the FBS, and they got that all the way up to 15th last year. It's been a long rebuild in terms of the culture on the defensive side of the ball. They're terrific again on defense again, and that's mainly because of their ability to stop the run. However, one thing that I do want to caution for, though, is if they come across a quarterback that is able to effectively get his receivers open. So, Florida State did end up losing 3 games last year. In 2 of those 3 losses, Clemson and Wake Forest, those were 2 of those losses. They beat Florida State by their respective quarterbacks, DJU and Sam Hartman as well. They both completed 65% or more of their throws. DJU now at Oregon State, so we don't have to worry about that this time around. I know they might have a better quarterback. That's to be determined, right? LSU almost pulled it off last year, and Jayden Daniels was very efficient with the football too. He completed 71% of his passes last year in that game. And if it went to overtime, I would contest with the way that momentum was swinging. I think LSU would have won that game in overtime. Not saying it for certain, but it certainly can happen, right? So that's a thing that I'm watching for as well. How does Florida State secondary hold up? Same thing for LSU's, because LSU, has a bunch of transfers that are going to be asked to step up and play in this game. And it's a high marquee test for that LSU secondary early on. So I think we all understand that. So what's going to happen in this game? How do I think this game is going to turn out? Like I said, I think it's going to be one of the most exciting games that we'll see in non-conference play this year. I think Texas and Alabama, that's going to be played next week. That's certainly up there as well. But in this game right here, both sides are going to be loaded with NFL talent on both sides of the ball. We know LSU is getting deeper. Florida State is also getting deeper as well. They're not at that 50% blue chip ratio to win a national championship. I still think they're a year away from that, but they're deeper than they were last year. And last year was a really exciting game. It really comes down to who is going to hold up better in the trenches. It comes down to those trenches. Whoever wins in the trenches for more points of the game, that's who the win is going to be. Now, I didn't talk about the LSU defensive front. And I think that defensive front can be a difference maker. Be one of those teams that maybe gets get into the fourth quarter. It's tough, hard-nosed football. It's a tight game. Could a couple of giant stops could maybe be the difference in this one. I'm thinking LSU narrowly, but I think these are two teams that are more than capable of winning their conference. As in my prediction videos for the conference championships going in, I have LSU winning the SEC, and I have Florida State winning the ACC out in the in this college football season. Florida State in particular, I think, is capable of winning the college football playoff. It's going to be fun. I'm excited to watch this. It's going to be must-see TV. Hopefully, I see you guys watching with me as well. But I think Florida State narrowly wins this one. Narrowly. So even though that is technically the only top 25 matchup that we have this week, but even though we may only have one top 25 matchup in this entire week 1 weekend, I still think that we got some great games happening on our hands. I really do.